Hey, Greg here for PARTYFOULWMH, Scott behind the camera, and I'm here to talk about what qualifies as an attack. And this can matter for a lot of special abilities and a lot of triggers. A lot of things like, say, Soul Collection from Enigma Foundries require that the model be destroyed by an enemy attack. So there's a number of things like Vengeance. Vengeance requires that a model in the unit has been destroyed by an enemy attack. Hand of Vengeance, that requires destroyed by an enemy attack. A lot of Soul Collection requires destroyed by an enemy attack. Hallowed Avenger requires that an enemy attack was used to destroy a friendly model. And Battle Driven, I believe, requires that you are damaged by an enemy attack. So there are a number of things within the Warmachine and Hordes game that are sort of a little ambiguous. Are they enemy attacks or are they not enemy attacks? So first I'm going to talk about what is an attack, the qualifying things, then I'm going to go into some of the troublemakers. Okay, so what is an attack? And this is my definition. It's not any different definition you're going to find on Battle College or anything like that. But my definition, from all the research that I've done, is that an attack is any magic, ranged, melee, or special action attack, that's action/attack, that requires a to-hit roll to be made, or that would require one if the target was within range, or is described or qualified as a hit. So that's a lot of stuff, but if it's anything that requires a to-hit roll or a targeting to be done, then it's almost 100% going to be an enemy attack. You get into some vagaries when you get troublemakers and stuff like that. So some of the stuff that's going to come up in your games that may potentially cause some disagreement as to whether or not it's an enemy attack are some feats that cause damage, like Harbinger's feat, the Old Witch's feat, that type of thing. Those are not enemy attacks. There's no to-hit roll to be done. There's no targeting to be done. Most of those things actually require something for the enemy to do, like advance, and then it just takes a damage roll. And that's going to be probably a repeat theme for a lot of these troublemakers, is that it's just a damage roll. There's no to-hit, there's no targeting to be done, that type of thing. It's just something bad that happened to this poor guy. Didn't necessarily could be qualified as the enemy doing it. So that's feats, scathers, covering fires, etc. Things that are left on the table that are effects that you can happen to walk through or stay in that will do damage to you. If you stand in a scather template, or if you walk through those clouds that are continuous corrosion, you take a point of continuous corrosion or whatever, then that's you doing it, that's not the enemy. You could have avoided that situation. It's not considered an enemy attack. Electro leaps, this is probably the biggest one. They don't count as enemy attacks. So, like in this situation, if Kirby here went and punched this guy, the initial punch, that's an enemy attack. This Foundry would be able to collect a soul from that. But because he's got Electro Leap on his big fists, the closest model within 4 inches takes a POW 10 damage roll. There's no to-hit roll. There's no targeting done. There's nothing like that. It is not an enemy attack. And if this guy succumbs to the Electro Leap, he will just die. He will not provide a soul token for the Enigma Foundry. Blight Shroud. Blight Shroud is something that the Forsaken does, and I specifically mentioned that because I had a situation in Hardcore at TempleCon with Jake Van Meter, where he was using Blight Shroud, and his intention was to use it so that he could deny souls to my Enigma Foundries. I wasn't aware that it was an enemy attack at the time. He didn't mention it, so I collected souls, and then he mentioned it in a subsequent round, and we corrected it there. But Blight Shroud is just a star action, and it affects models within a certain range. They all just take a damage roll. There's no targeting that's done. There's no hit roll that's done. Not an enemy attack. You don't get souls. A spell that Epic Boulder has, I believe, maybe somebody else, called Ground Zero. It's a similar type of thing. You spend the focus, you cast the spell, and then just models within a certain range take a POW 13 damage roll. It just happens. It's not like Boulder is hitting them. He's not targeting them or anything like that. It's just a general damage effect. So that is not an attack. It will not provide souls, will not trigger vengeance, all that type of stuff. Storm Calls. Got little Storm Callers here with their little electro things. They make a skill check. That's not a to-hit roll. That's not anything like that. So it will, I think you have to target an enemy model, but there's no to-hit roll done. It's just a skill check. It is not an enemy attack, so it will not affect any of those triggers. Admonisher. This is on a number of things like the Menoth Battle Engine, or I believe Epic Severius' staff. The initial attack, that is an enemy attack. That will do any of the triggers, but if it happens to admonish something else that has something that requires an enemy attack trigger, the Admonisher, the additional Admonisher attacks, the POW 10s, those are not enemy attacks. They will not affect triggers. Magic Bullet. Magic Bullet is a spell that like Ekane and Jarl have. Somebody else has it, I think. But you put it on a model. If the model hits something with, I believe it has to be a ranged attack, then another model within 4 inches that I think you can specify, it doesn't have to be the closest model, takes a POW 14 damage roll. Maybe it's a POW 12. POW 14, I believe. POW 14 damage roll. The initial attack with the gun, or the ranged attack, that is an enemy attack. That will proc any triggers that require an enemy attack. But the magic bullet shot, that doesn't require a hit roll. That doesn't target either. It's just you choose the model. That is not an enemy attack. That will not proc any triggers. Finally, a couple that are enemy attacks and that will affect triggers are Chain Lightning and the Arcs, and also Ashes to Ashes and any of the additional Ashes as well. And this you might be like, well, why are Electro Leaps not considered enemy attacks, but Chain Lightning is? And to be honest, I don't really know. I read through some forums, I asked a friend who's a judge, and they all agreed that Chain Lightning and the resultant Arcs are enemy attacks, but Electro Leaps are not. It's pretty evident that Electro Leaps are not. But the Chain Lightning, it says, a model hit by Chain Lightning suffers a POW 10 electrical damage roll, and Lightning Arcs from that model to D6 additional models. Ash to Ash is very similar. So I think that's because the first hit and all the additionals, they're all part of that magic spell. You know, it's a chain. It's all connected in some way. Whereas Electro Leaps are like you punch somebody and then something just kind of happens. That's my rationale for it. I can't. You'd have to read through the forums to get their exact rationale. Chain Lightning, though, and all the Arcs, they are enemy attacks. They will proc triggers that require an enemy attack to do so. Finally, this one we're a little less sure about, but we think we've got it, and we couldn't find anything specific on the forums, and I didn't get a chance to ask my buddy who's a judge. And that's the Thunderhead's pulse attack from his gun. It is a star attack. It doesn't require to hit roll. It doesn't require targeting. It's kind of like Ground Zero in the fact that it just hits everything that's within a certain range of him. I think it's 6 inches or whatever, and they all take a POW 12 damage roll. But because it's a star attack that is the source of the damage, we believe that it counts as an enemy attack and will proc those triggers. Like I said, that's probably the most contentious one that we could find. The other ones are all very clear. They've all been either infernaled or discussed on the forums and agreed upon. So may want to double check that one, but we think we're clear on that. So that is what an attack is. Hopefully that clears it up, and that if you come into any of those sort of situations where you want to know if you can proc a trigger for an enemy attack, you'll be clear on whether or not... Oh, something else that I didn't mention. The pod from the storm wall, any damage that inflicts, not an enemy attack, because Signar is the king of not enemy attack sort of stuff. So that's what an attack is. Hopefully that's clear. Hopefully that resolves any problems that you may have in your games, and you can have fun and proc your triggers if you can.